Evening everyone. Today I'll be explaining certain things that you can do with Node and how to create a simple website with an API with Node. So just to get heads up, I'm more into Java and PHP, and then I started working with Node. So it's like you can actually do all the stuff that I'm showing you here in JavaScript, Java, as well as in PHP. And the main difference is the time you take to write the code and the complexity you need to deal with. So if you are to have more fine-grained control of the service and more control over the way that you do, you need to go to it's like a stack. You can start off with the lower stack. So it's like JavaScript, you have everything already set up for you. You just need to code the business core logic that you need to implement, and everything else will be handled by the Node.js or the frameworks that you are using. If you start off with Java or like PHP or any other framework, certain things can be done through the frameworks, but not as much as the Node.js does. So I'll show you a demo and how this is actually one of the frameworks that is there out there in Node.js, and how we can actually do certain things that we used to do in Java or like PHP or any other stacks. I'll be telling a lot of tools, a lot of conventions. So good thing about conventions is people will be there are better people who came together and discussed to do this is the way that it should have done. So and procedures. So one of the things that this is when you follow a certain procedure that was well tested and is widely used in the market, is that you won't face some of the issues that you might even face if you go otherwise. So it's a certain path that you don't have any issues. So you follow that path, you won't see some of the issues that you might face if you didn't go you start off your own path. It might work, but sometimes most of the time you are not actually looking at to create a new path. You'll be looking at to go to the destination. So the path thing is already done by the people, and what you need to do is go through the path. There are frameworks like that. There are certain foundations, certain ways of doing it. We have it there in PHP, Java, and everything, but in Node.js it is more vibrant and it's more developer friendly than most of the frameworks that is there. You can actually PHP there. We have Cake, PHP, G, and all those frameworks. Those are actually creating most of the stuff that we do here. But there's because if you take web apps or apps that currently people are doing, there is most of them are written in JavaScript. So it's a front end app, and the developer knows the code. The front end should be JavaScript, and there's a back end. So when you have the Node.js in the back end, the front end developer can also code on the back end as well. So it's the same stack, same thing. So it's the code that is running on the server as well as the front end. You don't need to have a barrier instead this is the person who is doing the front end, this is the back end guy. Because this guy understands the code that is there in the server as well. It's the same conventions, same API interfaces and all that is the same. So apart from the stuff that I'm showing, there are so many alternative frameworks, so many stuff there are in the NPM community, and there are so many things that you can do. So the stack that I'm using, I'll be using very few lines of codes. I'm particularly all likely the more you code, more the bugs you will be. So it's whenever you code more, you need to actually test it and configure it. So if you code the certain parts, the certain things that you actually need to code, that part you actually need to test it, but you won't be testing the frameworks, you won't be testing the integrations. Any of the stuff is not, it's not your responsibility. It's a responsibility by the framework or the people who set the things up. So you will be only focusing on the part that you are responsible. You create the API or create the certain part, the website or what happens like that, like certain things that the core business logic is what you will be implementing, not the how this would work with another server, how that part will be totally abstract. Of course, you can actually dig into the code and change the framework, or you start off with a different framework. So you can actually change the configuration. But most of this stuff, these are already configured for you. So you can start off your So I'll be creating a simple web application with a backend server. So when you create a server thing like this, you need to have certain folders in place, certain files in place. So that part, the boilerplate or the structure will be created by a tool, and then you'll be having dependencies. Of course, if you are planning to have your core logic only, everything else will be done through other packages, right? So the package dependencies like the core part when you are working with Node.js. So you'll be actually integrating so many packages into your system. And then of course you need code, test and deploy. We mainly focusing on Yo. Yo is a scaffolding tool. Grunt is a task runner. And Bower is a package management tool for the front end. So I'll be using AngularJS is the one that I'm using for the front end. AngularJS is a front end application framework. This is the testing framework. PhantomJS is a headless browser. So it's like when you're testing your web application, you need to test it on the live browser, right? So PhantomJS is it's like a Chrome without the window. So you can actually run, so I'll be explaining the E2E testing, so end-to-end testing. So it's like the web app will be running on the browser, and it will be automated to do the certain tasks and get the output. So that if you run this in a server configuration, you need a PhantomJS, or otherwise you need a Chrome drive or something like that to integrate the communication between the browsers. Yeah, they all support the same API. PhantomJS is a Node-based browser, headless browser. So PhantomJS, I'll be integrating the Chrome as well. So PhantomJS is one that it defaults to. Justbean is a testing framework. It's just a way of writing the test. I'll be explaining the testing the way that Yo is like a scaffolding tool. So each of these frameworks has different folder structures, and certain files need to be in certain locations. So Yo will be taking care of all that. So Yo is like a generator. Say for example, you need to create an Angular app. There's a generator for that. You need to create a Chrome app. There's a generator for that. You need to create a Firefox add-on. There's a generator for that. So each of these scaffolding is done through Yo. So Yo will actually create the folder structure to start off your development. So it will create the folders. So it's like, say in an MVC framework, you need to have controllers, routes, views, and all that in place. So what Yo does is you tell what you need to create, and it will create it for you the way that the framework wants it. So each of these frameworks has their own Yo generators. So I'll be using one of the Yo generators to generate the full stack of Node. Any of you have used NPM? So NPM is the Node defaults package manager. So the Bower is used to do it on the front end. So since JavaScript is working on the server as well as in the front end, Bower is used to manage the front end packages so we are actually talking about single page applications here. So each of these applications will have multiple dependencies. Say for example jQuery, Bootstrap, and all those front end dependencies is handled through Bower. So Bower is used in that case. NPM is used in the backend. So it's like two separations. Bower is used. So when you use a package manager like this, the main advantage we have is we don't have to manage the dependencies. They'll actually handle it. So say you want to jQuery this particular version, you set it in the Bower configuration, and whenever, say, you can actually configure it to this particular version, or a version that is upwards to this, or version should be in between these versions. So when you have that, whenever they update their version, it will be automatically updated in your dependency and in the full stack. So that is why we use npm, the npm and power. So they will actually handle the dependencies. So whenever they have bug fix, it will be automatically fixed in your code as well. You don't need to manually intervene and change the files, the jQuery, or you need to actually change those JavaScript. You don't need npm. So GRUNT is like a build tool, but it is not actually a build tool. It's like this will run whatever the task that you need to but it is configured. So it's like say you have separate commands. Say you want to say you need to minify the files. You need to concatenate all the files into one file, and then create the sprites from say you have 5 images. To optimize the loading time in the browser, what we will be doing is create one image out of all images and then sprite it out in the CSS. So it's one of the conventions that using the UI to speed up the browser speed, the loading time. So all that will be done through GRUNT. So you can actually configure different tasks, and when you configure, it will be running the. I'll be showing you a GRUNT configuration file. So it will show off different different tasks that you can run, and there are so many GRUNT tasks available in GitHub. You can just need to create include it into your project, and it will be run seamlessly. Essentials. So if you are to create a typical web application, so I'm not actually looking into websites here. These are web applications, single web applications. So they'll have different logic in the front end, and we'll have a server as well. So in the front end, we need a MVC. So MVC is a model view controller. So each of these, there are certain ways that the model is bind to the controller and view how the view is showing you the content of the model. So that needs to be there in the front end web application. And these are different things that you need to do in a front-end application. The minification. So minification is you will have a huge the development version of the JavaScript that you put on the side is not the same version that you put on a deployment server. So minification will create a minified version of the file, which will actually create because the JavaScript is not encrypted when you put it out in the field. So you can actually change the variable names into different names, and it will be small in size. And concatenation is you have 5 different files. It will create one file containing all the files. You can actually configure the way that you want. The application, they actually change the variables, so you can't, because the stuff that you do, it is already there in the browser. Anybody can actually dig into the code and figure it out what you're doing. So this will actually make it hard for them to decode it. And sprite generation is the same thing that I previously said, creating one image out of a lot of images. So in the server side, we need an API. So I'll be explaining an REST API and socket.io for the say you have 5 different browsers, and what I will show you is whenever you change the first browser, everything will be synced to all the other browsers without a refresh. So it will be handled through socket.io. I'm not actually going to explain you how to set up the tools and all that is. It is actually there. If you search any of these tools, you can actually go to the site and it will show you npm install this particular name. So I'm not actually going to show you any of that stuff. So I'll be creating a Angular full stack. So your is as I said, it is a scaffolding tool. First you need to create the app, the whole structure. So Angular full stack is the generator that I'm using. If you are using a template engine, you can actually use it here. So it's template engine is used to you will be having different templates on the front end and update the data. So Jade is one of the templates that template engine I'm not using. So I'll be using CSS. These are different things. The authentication. So almost all the web applications you need authentication, right? So out of the box, it will actually create authentication for you, and even provides different strategies. Say you want to have Google authentication, Facebook, or any of them. Just need to specify here, and that will be created. You will have, say, if you want to have Facebook, so we have Facebook and Google. It will be creating the boilerplate to create. So everything, like user creating, user signing up, forgetting passwords, everything is already created for you in your app. Whether I need to use Socket.io, yeah. So it will create all the scaffolding. These are the files. So these are the files that it will create for you, and these will. So this is power. These are the front end dependencies. I need to actually run this website. So it will take some time. There are certain. So these are the okay. In your the generator that I'm using, the full stack generator. These are the different things that you can generate from the full stack generator. So you can actually create an endpoint. This endpoint will actually create an API endpoint server with the Socket.io integration. So I'll show you what the route will actually create an Angular route. So you will have a view controller already created for you, and you can actually change the view and everything that the particular view needs. Controller is you create a controller. So these are like different things that the Angular actually. These are specific to Angular, actually, filters, directives, services. So since it's not very, I can actually explain any of those. So these are like different abstractions that the Angular provides to maintain the typical large-scale web application. So these are different things. So it also has this the deployments, OpenShift and Heroku. So if you have any of the like OpenShift or Heroku account, you can deploy it from this from the app itself. So when you deploy, it will actually minify, like do all the hard stuff, and it will create a single file or like in a single folder, and it will minify everything. And it will, if you have these, you can actually deploy to that server directly. So these are like these are well integrated. So this is actually used in continuous integration. So you can actually deploy it directly to this service. We can actually have more deployment options. This is what your generator, Angular full stack generator provides by default. So we can actually add more deployment tasks or any of whenever other tasks that we need to, if we want some other stuff. So if you look at I'll show you if you look at the Power.json, these are the dependencies for the front end of the web application. So I'll be using Angular, Bootstrap, and so those are one. So this is the testing configuration. So this is what I was saying. So I can actually say like if you want Chrome. So what it will do is like whenever I run the integration test and unit test, it will run on Phantom.js as well as Chrome. So the good thing about this is like the testing environment is the actual web environment. So it's like you won't be testing it in a different environment. So you'll be testing on the browser itself. So it's like whenever your unit tests and everything is running on the browser and getting the output from the browser. So because if you guys know, like there are certain things that the browsers like Chrome has different implementation of the same thing, and Firefox has a different implementation. So you can actually add this. You can actually connect your mobile phone, because what it will do is like it will create a server for you. Whenever a device connected to this particular port, it will run the test on that particular device. So you can actually connect your Android phone, like different screen sizes. Anything can be done. This is the port actually.
So I understand about the JUnit and the unit tests.
Yeah.
Runs on Chrome. But if you have, how do you create functional tests?
I'll show you. So
how does that run on Chrome? I think Dalit also wants to know.
So yeah, this is like when I'm running the test, if any of the browsers, any of the mobile phone, anything connected to this particular port using my IP address, it will be used to run that test on that particular machine. So yeah, so everything is done. So these are different packages. So it's like so many stuff. Yeah. it is very easy to like, so you will be using the same jQuery in the server, and you can automate it here. So you need a done callback to like a callback to get the like after you load the new page, and then you check whether the login was successful or failed. So that part something might have gone wrong. So yeah. So mind you that the application is already running, and we'll be creating a new service. So on the background, it will restart the service, integrate the new API, and everything will be done on the fly. So the data is endpoint. So if you look at the right side of it, so it will change what was this. So these were the files that was created, and as a result, the server got restarted, and you are up again, like to do the work. What you do when you get how to get the controller, how to find. So these are like Mongo commands. You need to find event ID, find by ID, to create the body. So you create the full REST API. It just like create you just need the name, and to integrate, just need to add the stuff that the name, info, service, or like whatever the stuff that the object have. So these are actually things that you need to know beforehand, and what this will do is like create help you to develop the app very fast. So if you know all these conventions, you don't need to create any of this stuff. You know that it will be there. You just need to type in the necessary stuff, and you'll be. So this is the test for the particular API. So it gets this. It expects to be 200. This is this. And the body should be an array. So that test is already there for you whenever you create the API. So I didn't actually code a single line to create the API. So whenever you create it, so when you have this already scaffolding into your application, the developer can actually do the rest of the URL that you need to when you have this view. So I'll go with test. So it will create some of these. So if you go to this particular test, according to this, so in Angular you have different ways of communicating the scope to the front end. So that part is done through here. So you get the specs. So these are actually few of the things that happens underneath. So it's like watch for the changes, auto reload, it will buy dependencies, and preprocess. So if you are working with coffee or CSS preprocess like SAS, it will be actually integrated into the system. So the testing is already there. So if you look at the testing itself, so whenever you create any part of this application, the test will be automatically created for you. So it will then again create the scaffolding file, and then the test. So whenever you create, the test is already created for you. And looking about these tests is, you can actually set it up to run every time you change the code. What you need to write is like the actual implementation. But when you don't have the scaffolding, it tends to you need to get it from somewhere else. It's not a big deal to create the scaffolding, but when you have the scaffolding, it is more likely that you will write the test as well. So the good thing that it does, when you have well-known libraries like jQuery Bootstrap, it will create the CDN version of that. So the browser will load the version that it already has. So it's like whenever you load a third-party library, it will take browser time. But if all the browsers, all the web apps are using the same CDN location, only the first one takes time. And whenever say the visitor coming to our site might have already cached it, so we just fetch it from the cache. So those kind of optimizations are already done, and you don't need to worry any of that stuff. So there are some validations in the front end. So say you need to have these tags in this particular, these attributes in this particular tag. So it will check all that, and if you can recover, it will recover from the data that it has. So it will create all that, and that minified version. So if you look at the app, you see hashes included. So whenever you change the app, these hashes will be changed, and app will get the latest version. So it's like you have multiple versions, and each of these versions will get based on the version that it requires. So if you just include the vendor CSS, you will be getting the CSS, all instances of your app will be getting the same CSS. But if you have the hash somewhere in the file, you'll be getting the version you need for that. So all those kind of those are already thought of and already done. So you just need to, because if you just follow the protocol the way that they do, most probably you won't face any of the issues. You just need to, you can actually create an app maybe in days. If you have any questions,